good day, pre-algebra. We are going through Unit 2, and I told you to picture me as your first grade teacher because we're going to add and subtract today. A little bit more than you did back in first grade because you look down below here and you see some parentheses, you see like a plus sign and a minus sign in the same expression, like what's going on here. So turns out there's more to addition and subtraction than just plus or minus. Okay, and there are certain notations, certain ways we can write things that mean addition or mean subtraction, and we just want to get it all out in the open here. So this is a key point. It is something that I would highly recommend putting on a help sheet. You'll not be able to use a calculator on this portion of the test because, again, I'm not testing whether or not you can push buttons in the right order. Okay, that's good. It's good skill to have, but I'm more testing, do you know what 13 minus -4 means? And then how to solve it, okay? So let's just start with what we know. What do we know? Okay, you grew up knowing how to add positive numbers, okay? When you add a positive number, who can give me an example from down below here? And there's only one that I can see from what's showing up on the page right now of adding a positive number. I shouldn't say that. There are more than that, but one that stands out. Yeah. 7 plus 19, okay, is adding a positive number. 7. So we're going to go all the way over to the example here, okay, and say that's an example of adding a positive. There are other examples here also. What is another example of adding a positive number from the 12 that you can see here? Here's the key, I think, personally, to understanding PO8 here for how to add and subtract. When we say adding a positive, that says nothing about the first number in the expression. All we're looking for, because the first number has nothing to do with the operation. That's just where you're starting. So what makes this adding a positive, this plus 19 here? What's another example you can see here of adding a positive? Wyatt? -7 plus 9, right? Even though that first number is negative, that doesn't matter as far as the operation. That's just where you're starting on the number line. So -7 plus 9 is another example of adding a positive. Okay. The operation for this is, of course, addition. Okay. And what direction on the number line do we go when we add? We go to the right. Okay. Whenever the operation is addition, that means you're moving to the right on the number line. Okay. If you're using a calculator right now, I'm asking you to put it away because you will not be able to use it on the test, and so we're not going to use it now. Okay. Yes, sir.
For the test, if we want to put on the help sheet the table, do we have an example or no?
Anything that's in the table here can go on a help sheet. Okay, because it's under that key point section. Okay. The next thing that you know is when you subtract a positive. Okay. Give me an example of subtracting a positive here. This one might be a little bit more tricky. When you hear subtract a positive, what? But what would be an example of that? Griffin?
14
where do you see that? Oh, yes. Yeah, 14 minus 6 here, okay, would be subtracting a positive. What's another example of subtracting a positive? -5 minus 3, okay? Again, the sign of that first number does not matter, okay? It's what comes in between the numbers that is your operation. In the first set here, we see that in between our 7 and 19 is a plus sign. That means we're adding. What's in between our -7 and 9 is a plus sign. We're adding. The second row here, what's in between our 14 and 6? Negative sign. We're subtracting. What's in between our -5 and our 3? A subtraction sign. We're subtracting. Okay? So with the operation of subtraction, what direction is that going on the number line? Every single time. Griffin?
left.
Going to the left. So if you don't see just a plus sign in between your numbers, or you don't see just a minus sign in between your numbers, your task becomes, what's my operation, right? Our next line here that we're going to add is adding a negative. And this might be new. You may have seen it last year. You probably did, okay? But what's an example of adding a negative here? I see two of them in these first 12. Dayton? -7 plus 9 would be adding a positive, okay? Because remember, the sign in that first number has nothing to do with the operation. In between our -7 and 9 is just a plus sign. So that's just straight up adding, okay? But adding a negative kind of means like, wait, there's more than one thing in there? Tony? Kate?
12 plus -15.
12 plus, where do you see that? Is that in row 3? Yeah. Can you find one in the first 2 rows here so it's on the screen when we're... If I scroll down, it's going to move the marker. So it doesn't work. -25 plus -8 is an example of adding a negative. Because if you look at in between our -25 and our 8, what do we have? We have a plus sign and a negative sign. Okay? What's another example you can see in these first 12 here of adding a negative? Haley. 14 plus -3. It doesn't matter whether our first number is positive or negative. Again, it's what's in between. And what's in between is adding a negative, a plus sign and a minus sign. When you see that, when you see this plus sign and a minus sign here, what operation is that? It's either addition or subtraction. You just got to figure out which one it is. Griffin? It is subtraction, which means that when you see that notation, adding a negative, which direction are you going on the number line? Left, because that is another way to represent the operation of subtraction. It's like a synonym, okay? Math synonym. The final thing that you'll come across. Whoops, how'd that work? Did you see that? I tried to write and it moved the word down. Is my green marker not working again? Oh, it's in timeout. Blue will work. I can count on blue. Okay. The fourth type is subtracting a negative. Okay? Subtracting a negative. Give me an example here of subtracting a negative. Camille. Yes, 13 minus -4. Now, in between our numbers, we've got 2 negative signs. Subtracting a negative. What's another example of subtracting a negative here? Haley? 22 minus -18. Good. Okay. So again, it comes down to what's in between the numbers. Subtracting a negative. What does that mean? What does that mean, Kate?
I just see another example.
Yes. -4 minus -5 would also be, right? It doesn't matter the sign of the first number, it's just what's in between. And when you see that, subtracting a negative, what operation is that? Abby? Addition, okay? Which means, which direction are you going on the number line? The right, okay? The right. So once you get that part down, solving addition and subtraction expressions such as these becomes a matter of 3 things. Number 1, where do I start? Number 2, which direction do I go? Number 3, how far? That's basically it. Okay? So, oh man, my board is all sorts of out of sorts today. What is all this stuff up here? Ugh. What's this now? Go away. Thank you. Okay, so for -7 plus, maybe. For -7 plus 9, where are you starting? Where are you starting? On the number line, where are you starting? Carter? Just what number? -7. Which direction are you going? I see what's in between the numbers. I see that plus sign. I look at my chart and I look for where there's a plus sign. Which direction am I going? Anybody? To the right. How far? 9. Okay? So visualize that number line in your head. You're starting at -7. You're going to the right 9. Where are you stopping? +2. Okay? +2. 13 minus -4. Where are you starting, Cade? No. The first number is where you start. Yes. The reason why there are parentheses there is because, there exist people in this world, Cade, who don't write neatly. I personally don't know of anyone like that, but they're out there. And so if you're writing 13 minus -4 and you're sloppy about it, 13 minus -4, that looks just like one giant negative sign, doesn't it? 13 minus 4, right? So the parentheses are there just to kind of separate those, just to really point out that it's a minus -4, okay? It doesn't factor into like order of operational stuff. It doesn't mean do this first, okay? In this case, it's meant to separate those, right? So the first number in addition or subtraction is where you're starting, okay? So we're starting at 13. What's in between the numbers? Minus a negative. So which direction are we going? Look at your chart, people. Look at your chart. Okay, we have this exact one under that subtracting a negative section, and it means we're adding. Okay, if this is something that you should all put on a help sheet, even if you get it. Okay, it's a good thing to have here. In between the numbers, that minus negative means we're adding. We're going to the right. So starting at 13, going to the right, how far? How far? 4. Where are we stopping? 13 to the right 4 is 17. Okay? It just you have to almost start over with adding and subtracting, right? Because if you're kind of if you're in the mindset of I can add and subtract, this is, and then you're not really thinking about it, because when you first learn how to add and subtract, you probably didn't even know that negative numbers existed, right? Or maybe you knew they existed, but you didn't use them, And now all of a sudden in 6th grade, 7th grade, we're throwing this whole negative thing at you, and now we got subtract a negative, add a negative. It could be a lot, okay? So really take your time with this. Where do I start? Which direction do I go? How far? Griffin. No, because think of that number line, right? Here's our number line. Where do I start? I start at 13. Which direction do I go? I go to the right. How far? 4. 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay? No, that first number's positive. Okay? -5 minus 3. Folks, we got this. I believe in you. -5 minus 3. Where are you starting? Tony. Good. Which direction are you going on the number line? Left. Okay? Left. Why is it left? Where do you look to find your operation? In the middle. The first number does not matter as far as the operation goes. So in between our numbers, I have one solitary, lonely negative sign. Okay? So in between those numbers, I've got one negative sign. You look at your chart, where else do you see one negative sign? In our row for subtracting, we're going left. Okay? So from -5, we're going left 3. Where are we stopping? Abby? -8. Okay? -8. Stop and think about these, folks. Really stop and think. 12 minus 20. Where do you start? Quentin? Oh, well, you just Yeah. Okay. But again, the reason why, Quentin, where do we start? Where on the number line are we supposed to start? At 12. What's in between the numbers? One subtraction symbol. We look at our chart. That means we're subtracting. We're going to the left. How far do we go? 20. And then 12 left 20 does bring us to negative 8. Okay. 14 plus negative 3. Where are you starting, Tony? 14. Which direction are we going? Camille? Left. Why? Because in between the numbers, I've got that plus minus. Okay, adding a negative. According to our chart, where I see adding a negative, that means we're subtracting. We're going left. How far do we go? 3. So what's our answer? 11. All right. I'm gaining confidence in you. Negative 13 minus 6. Where do we start? Abby? Negative 13. Which direction on the number line do we go? Wyatt? Yeah. Left. Right? Because in between the numbers, I see that negative sign. Just one of them. We're going left. How far? 6. So what's our answer? Cade? Negative 19. Attaboy. Okay. Any questions on this? Any questions on this, sir? It will be homework, but it's not going to be until Monday because tomorrow's a retake day. So your heavier homework nights are usually Thursdays because Fridays it's not due. Okay? That way you get to decide whether or not you have homework over the weekend, not me. You do it tonight, you don't have homework over the weekend. Abby. Oh, we still got 17 minutes left. We're just getting warmed up, Abby. Let's go. Okay? Let's move on to decimals here. Okay? Let's move on to decimals. Oh, before we do, I have a nifty tidbit here. This is my little avatar for nifty tidbit. Yeah, he can go on the test. So you didn't ask the question, but oftentimes I get asked the question, why does this subtracting a negative, sorry, green the timeout. Why does this subtracting a negative thing actually become addition? Why, when you've got something like 7 minus negative 4, does it actually mean that you add? Okay. Well, the answer is that another way to describe subtraction is to think about it as how far away, or the difference of two numbers on the number line. If you take one that you're probably comfortable with, 10 minus 3, how far away are 10 and 3 on the number line? 7 numbers away. That's why 10 minus 3 equals 7. We can think about the same thing here, right? If we're subtracting 7 and it says minus negative 4, what that's saying is how far away on the number line are negative 4 and positive 7? Right? How far away are those two numbers, negative 4 and positive 7, on the number line? 11, right? Since they're 11 away, we can get to that 11 by taking 7 plus 4, which is what that subtracting a negative means anyway. Okay? So if you want to shift your thinking to subtraction, meaning how far away two things are, it kind of helps to make this, maybe for some of you, make a little more sense. How far away are 7 and negative 4? Okay? And so if that helps, great. If not, and the chart works better, great. But there you go. Blake. Negative 4 minus negative 5. Okay? So using the chart method, right? If you see this, you're asking yourself, where do I start? What number are you going to start at? Negative 4. Okay? Which direction am I going? You look in between the numbers, you see that minus negative. That means you're going to the right, according to the chart, right? Blake, yeah? So how far do you go to the right? 5. So starting at -4, going to the right 5, what's your answer? Starting at -4, going to the right 5, you end at +1. On a number line, starting at -4, here's 0, right? Starting at -4, going to the right 5, you're going to end at +1. Okay? If you kind of go with this how far away method here, -4 minus -5, how far away are -4 and -5 on the number line? They're 1 away. So you get +1 there too. Okay? But yeah, that first number where you start, in between the numbers is your operation, which ultimately is your direction. And then the second number is how far you go. Okay? Where do I start? What direction? How far? Adding and subtracting. Who knew? There's so much to it, right? Oh, okay. Oh, good. All right. Any other questions on adding and subtracting integers before we get to decimals? Decimals is almost easier, right? It's very much more straightforward method here. What's our method? I only gave you 5 to practice on. What's our method for adding and subtracting decimals? Tony.
For the first one, you have to add a 0 to 1 because we're adding as like as an extra number.
Sure, you might want to think about this as you say add a 0, you put it in front of the 7. You could.
Or after 1.
You wouldn't really put it after the 1 because there's only 1 digit after the decimal point for the other number as well. What's the thing you have to remember with decimals? Griffin? Line up those points. You would not write this as 12.6 plus 7.1. Okay? That's not how you would write this. Or you wouldn't write this as 7.1 plus 12.6. Right? Those decimal points have to be lined up because that's what aligns your place value. Okay? So lining up these decimals, 7.1, 12.6. Now we've got our tenths lined up, the 1 and the 6. We have our wholes, our ones lined up, the 7 and the 2. And if you want to add a 0 in front of the 7 and say I've got 0 tens there and 1 10 and 12.6, that's fine. You wouldn't have to, right? And then you just add, like you know and love, add the columns, bring down the decimal. If you have to carry, you'd carry, but 19.7. Okay? When folks make mistakes with decimals, it's because they do not line up the decimal points. Yes?
Could you do like 12.6 plus like 7.1 like the other way around?
Yes, you can put the 12.6 first because with addition, order does not make a difference. Subtraction does, addition does not. Yes, Camille.
Make it so it's like 7.10 and then like the one like a little bit after like the 7 and the 1 so like matched up with the zeros behind the 1.
So you're saying put a 0 here?
Yeah.
And then what would you do here?
Put a 0.
You could do that, yes. You could also put a 0 here and a 0 here. Or you could even put a 0 here and 0 here. If you wanted to, if you're feeling really, you could put a 0 down here and then a 0 up there. Or you could put 2 at once. The possibilities are endless. So are the zeros. Yes, you can add zeros on the end of a decimal forever. Okay, we wouldn't need to add any here because they both end in the tenths place. But if you like drawing circles, you be my guest. Okay. All right. One where a 0 might be more necessary is in the next one. If we have 19.521, I'm of course going to line up my decimals. So my 17.22 is going to look like that. Okay. And this would be a situation where you might be more inclined to put a 0 after that second 2. Okay. So they're out of the same number of places. But again, we got that decimal points lined up there, okay? You know what the song goes through my head every time that I teach this? Line them up, up, line them up, line them up, up. It's place value. I don't know. It's just, yeah. Oh, save it. Okay. Questions on decimals. Usually these go pretty well. Once you get this that line up piece down. Okay. All right. Why do you think we always have you walk in lines in kindergarten, first grade, second grade? It's to practice lining up stuff straight, right? Okay. That's why we do it. Yeah. I totally just didn't make that up. Okay. Fractions is the next big one. This is the bane of many people's math experience, fractions, because there are rules that you must follow for adding and subtracting fractions. And truthfully, folks, if you have a negative opinion towards fractions, it's because you've developed myths over time that you're told are wrong. Like we talked about yesterday, if you're comparing fractions by looking how far away the numerator and the denominator are, that's a myth that you've developed over time that I'm now telling you is wrong. You've been told is wrong before, and then all of a sudden, fractions, I don't get them. Okay? If you remember the rules, and don't kind of create your own, it's no different than remembering to line up decimals. Okay? The two rules that you must keep in mind when adding and subtracting fractions, your denominators must be the same. Okay? Must be the same. Do you know why that is? The reason for it? What part of a fraction does the denominator represent? Think of the definition of a fraction. What is the denominator? The whole. Okay? The whole. It's a unit. It's a thing. Right? If you add, let's rewrite this. If you add 2 tables and 5 chairs, you can't do that. You can't add tables. You're not going to get chables or something, right? You can't add something different to something different. Denominators are the same way. It's like they are a thing. 12ths and 6ths are different. Okay? They are different sizes. A pizza cut in 12 pieces is a different size than a pizza cut in 6 pieces. Those can't be combined, right? So what options do we have here? And I know this is review for you, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on it. I know it's review. You just need those reminders. What are we going to do here to get our common denominators, Kylie? Sure. We can manipulate one of the fractions, sometimes both of them, right, by getting that common denominator. So now we have 2 twelfths plus 10 twelfths. Our units are the same. 2 tables plus 10 tables, right? It matches up. What do we get? Lexi? What do you mean we get 12 twelfths, not 12 24ths? Oh, so you mean like if I'm a zookeeper and I'm adding 2 lions to 10 lions, I don't get like 12 super mega lions? No, I still have 12 lions, right? The denominator stays the same, okay? You add 2 pieces of pizza to 10 pieces of pizza, you don't get 12, I don't know, mega stuffed crust deep dish New York style pizzas. You still have the same thing, okay? The other thing Lexi said was she said it would simplify to be 1. She's absolutely correct. You should always simplify fractions. Okay. So, folks, the 2 reminders. Like I said, this is review for everybody. You've all had this before. I know this for a fact. So your 2 reminders for adding and subtracting fractions. Your denominators must be the same, and they stay the same. Add or subtract the numerators only. Okay. If you run into a mixed number, what would your first step be here? Tony? Convert to an improper fraction. Okay, there's a couple of them on here that have mixed numbers. Yes, Cade? Cade? I told you not to talk about that. Abby? You did that on purpose. Abby? Yes.
So for the second one, do you like do the answer in an improper fraction?
Get in the habit of leaving your answers as an improper fraction. Just because as we get deeper into pre-algebra, deeper in algebra, we use mixed numbers less and less. We move more towards improper fractions. Huh? Just so you know how to do it. Tony.
So like the second one usually has an improper fraction.
Yes. It wouldn't be wrong if you converted it, but you don't have to. Okay. That's a lot of me talking today. Who knew that adding subtracting could take up a half hour of your time? There's a lot to it, especially when you add in decimals and fractions and things like that. So this entire objective, PO8, is homework for Monday. Okay. I do need to see your work. I'm going to tell you folks right now, if all you give me for this is an answer, I'm not going to accept it as completed. I need to see your work. Okay, so if you're using a calculator to check an answer, that's fine, but do not use it to find the answer. I must see the work. Repeat after me. He must see the work. Okay, yeah, no.
Did you see my work from yesterday?
Sorry?
From yesterday?
We looked over that. We corrected that. Okay. All right, folks, homework for Monday. Don't forget Khan Academy is due tonight. The football sheet is due tonight. Okay. I'll update standings during my prep. That's how you math, folks.